joining us on another episode of the Roundtable Talk Show. I am your host, Sharifa Hardy, and today's show is going to be incredible. I have absolutely no idea what we're going to talk about, what we're going to discuss, but I guarantee it's going to be interesting. It's going to be entertaining. And you know what? It's also going to be educational. So go ahead and grab your notepads, grab your recorders, whatever you use to take notes. You will want to take notes today. But I'm also going to ask you to do what I always ask you to do, and that is to go out and be an evangelist for the Roundtable Talk Show. There's someone you know, maybe in your house, in your network, maybe they're a coworker, maybe it's a parent, maybe it's a child, but someone is starting their entrepreneurial journey. They're starting their business, or maybe they're growing their business and they're stuck and they need to learn how. What they won't have this information unless you go ahead and share the show with them. So send that text, send that tweet, send that inbox, make that post, but let everyone know the Roundtable Talk Show is live, because friends don't let friends miss out on the Roundtable Talk Show. So while you're introducing the show to your network, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our very first guest, the lovely Miss Sheena Yap Chan. Sheena is a keynote speaker, coach, podcaster, consultant, and best-selling author on bulk self-confidence. She currently inspires women through her award-winning podcast called the Tao of Self Confidence, where she interviews Asian women about their inner journey to self-confidence. Good morning, Sheena. How are you?
Hey, Sharifa, thank you so much for inviting me here today. It's such a blast to be surrounded with awesome people this morning, especially on a Monday morning. Great way to start, that Monday motivation. And as Sharifa mentioned, I do have a podcast called the Tao of Self Confidence, where I interview Asian women about their journey to self-confidence. And part of the reasons why I do that is because growing up in Toronto, Canada in the early 90s, I never saw any Asian female role models that I could look up to. And I was always ashamed of who I was because of my cultural background. So I never want our current and future generations to go through the same thing I went through. And also representation. Representation has always been something that I've been passionate about, showcasing more powerful Asian women just because of the things we've been going through, especially with the rise of Asian hate crimes that's been going on in the US and Canada and Europe and Australia. It's just, we definitely need more powerful Asian women out there so we can dismantle some of the things that society sees us as, right? Most of society sees us as quiet, submissive, and obedient, or we're treated as sex objects. And because of that, we become the easier target, right? There's reports saying that Asian women are almost 2.5 times targeted more than men because of that notion. So I really want to create a stronger, powerful representation, especially this month. It's Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. So it's a great month to celebrate our achievements. And one of the things I'm really super proud of is creating the book, Asian Women Who Boss Up. If you check here, there's no books out there that really highlight 16 Asian women on a cover of a book. And this is just kind of like when I saw Crazy Rich Asians for the first time in the theaters. It's like, finally, something about Asian people, that's not the stereotypical thing that media always promotes us as. And, tomorrow we're actually launching this book, International Women of Color Who Boss Up. So I keep telling everyone, may the 4th be with us tomorrow. And people can grab a copy on Amazon, because it's just the same thing. There's not a lot of representation for women of color. And, now is the time for us to boss up, especially with the pandemic has really affected women, especially women of color, a lot more. And, because of this, we've been set back a couple generations. It's harder for us to, more women are losing jobs than men. And it's time for us to find different ways to get ourselves back up, to rise up and be the powerful, leaders that we're meant to be. So that's a little bit about me.
Wow, I love it. I love it. I love when people come with their pitch, their presentation of who I am and what I'm passionate about ready. So I love it. And what was interesting to me is some of the stereotypes that you mentioned would not have occurred to me, because I would not have thought that Asian people were going through as much as they are, and that you felt that way. But I think in the past year, with everything that's going on, it brought the awareness to much of the world. I know last year when the George Floyd tragedy hit, I was asked to speak on so many different panels, and so many people would say to me, Sharifa, I didn't know, I had no idea racism was this huge in America. And my response and my question was them, how could you not know? But listening to you is the same thing. It's like because it didn't affect me per se, then maybe I wasn't aware of that. Do you feel that you received that same response from people where they said, you know what, Sheena, I had absolutely no idea that this is what you were suffering from?
Oh, yeah. I mean, especially in the beginning of February when all these reports started happening, our elderly being attacked every single day. Every person, who wasn't of Asian descent was like, I didn't know this was happening. And I'm like, yeah, nobody knows about it because mainstream media isn't talking about it either. It's like we were literally crying for attention for us to talk about these things, right? Talk about what's been going on, why our elderly community keeps getting targeted every single day. And I had to wait until the Atlanta shooting to really get people wake up and realize this is happening. And some people think, oh, it's just one incident. It hasn't been one incident. We've been going through this for years, right? I mean, we haven't, there was a Chinese Exclusion Act in America and Canada. It's like we were barred from these countries based on our race. It doesn't get more racist than that, right? Being barred from a place based on the color of your skin, based on your cultural background. And, it's because schools don't talk about what we went through history. And so that's why some people think we don't go through these things, right? And also part of it is our upbringing. We've been told to never make any noise, stay in the background, just do as you're told. But now our silence is literally killing us. And that's why it's so important to speak up. And it's not easy. It's scary, of course, right? We don't know what's going to happen, right? We don't know if someone's going to, give us a hate speech or even target us. But if we don't do anything, then we'll be complacent. We'll still be stuck in the same place over and over again. I mean, it's the same reason why I speak up, right? Because this is happening for the longest time, right? And the one thing that I really love was that there was so much solidarity. People saying especially after what happened with the Atlanta shooting, we're in solidarity together, because I understand racism doesn't only happen in our culture; it happens to many cultures, right? And even what's more saddening is that a lot of Latinx people are being mistaken as Asian people. And so they're getting targeted based on that. So a couple of weeks ago, I was reading a report how a 70-year-old Mexican woman got beaten up in the bus for that reason, because they thought she was Asian. For me, any person who beats up an elderly is just a coward, right? I don't even know what they're thinking when they target an elderly person, maybe because they know they can't fight. And especially with, Asian elderly people, it's like they have a language barrier. So maybe they might not be able to report that crime due to that language barrier. So, I mean, I could go on and on about it, and it would probably take more than an hour. But yeah, I mean, every time I talk about it, people don't think it happens. And when it does happen, they're very shocked about it. So the same thing.
Yes, I definitely understand. Now, Sheena, I'm going to come back to you. I want to go ahead and introduce our next guest, the incredible Mr. John Andrew Williams. John is president and co-founder of Coach Training EDU. He has dedicated his life to making the world a better place through coaching. He became a certified life coach after college, but started working as a high school Latin teacher. When working as a teacher, he noticed a shift in his students' productivity and creativity when using coaching in the classroom. Good morning, John. How are you?
Good morning, Sharifa. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. So I started out as a high school Latin teacher. I taught Latin for 6 years. I studied classics in college, about, I don't know, the least practically useful thing you could ever study. And then when I was teaching, I realized that so much of the education model focuses on outside knowledge, but we don't really focus on that inside knowledge. And a lot of what you're talking about, Sheena, is that inner world, like how schools, what we focus on has like a tremendous focus away from that inner space. And it's that sharing and empathy and understanding this is what someone else's experience is like. It's so powerful. What I do now, I run a coaching company with my wife, Amois, and we train people to be life coaches. And so we currently train around 300 people in an academic, a wellness, and an executive program. We've done programs. I think our largest program has been with the University of Oklahoma, where we've trained over 60 of their faculty and staff to boost student retention. So a lot of the work that I do basically is that inner world work, getting really clear on what what it is you really, really want in your life and how can you design your life to achieve it.
Mm-hmm. No, but in your information, you mentioned changing the world, making the world a better place through coaching. How do you feel that that affects the world? I mean, like you mentioned Sheena. Sheena's passion is to go out there and be a voice for the voiceless. How do you do that through coaching?
For me, it all boils down to empathy
Mm-hmm.
and the ability for people to truly learn to listen to another person. Because in so much time when we're listening, we're asking ourselves, well, how does this apply to me? How can I relate to it? The empathetic listening is when you're listening to someone, asking yourself, what's it like to be them? And using all of your imaginative faculty to be them. So when I'm listening to Sheena, I'm imagining I'm in her position, her place, and feel the feelings. And it's not like you just listen with your ears. It's like you listen with your whole being, when you're listening to someone. And, basically, like, I train people to be listeners. And we're talking about changing the world and changing education. It's about what if every teacher, their foundational teaching came from this space of this empathy and this empathetic listening. So the vision is to train every teacher in the world to be an academic life coach, to be a coach before they're a teacher, and to really, really engage with students and trust their natural brilliance, trust their natural intelligence, and they're wanting knowledge. You don't have to force people to go get knowledge. You have to force people to learn, but that's the system. That's the way that it's designed. I feel like a lot of the work that I do with students, I have to undo the conditional motivation around grades, take people back from that and really tap into that, original spark.
Mm-hmm. So you believe that the grades have taken away from the spark and taken away from the individuality, because we're basically grading them on the same scale as opposed to maybe the way they learn or the way they retain the information.
Absolutely. And it's not that, if you take grades away, it's not that, you lower standards. I mean, I'm not saying no standards, but instead of grades, give feedback, give an opportunity to improve, give an opportunity to take chances, be creative, try something. But the system now punishes those things, because if you get a bad grade, you can't redo it. It's there. So we are literally, everyone is conditioned to not take chances, to be as precise as possible and fall in line. When the world right now needs change makers, people who are willing to do the mental, emotional work, to take on the tough topics, to be vulnerable, to feel like, yeah, I'm just barely holding this together, but here we are, and to be resilient. That's what we're after. And for me, coach training is a vehicle for that, especially when you combine it with education.
Wonderful. Now I am going to come back to you. I want to go ahead and introduce our next guest, Mr. John Pham. John is the founder of the personal finance site, The Money Ninja, where he teaches people how to maximize their finances. John launched The Money Ninja in 2019 during his graduate studies, when he realized that many friends and family members benefited from his advice on how to maximize their finances. Good morning, John. How are you?
Good morning, Sharifa. How are you doing? Glad to be here.
Glad to have you.
Yeah, so, this latest project of mine, right, the Money Ninja about personal finance, I think overall, financial advice is a very crowded field, but people just want good, sound, and useful advice, and that's still hard to come by, even with like the thousands of financial advisors and all these blogs and financial sites out there. But what kind of struck me is, I believe I'm uniquely qualified because I've been through all the positions of the spectrum. My mom and dad came here to Boston during the Vietnam War with really nothing besides a clothes in their back and a couple of dollars from the Red Cross Fund. And I've seen them work, 3 different jobs to support our family. And my dad taking a risk to be an entrepreneur, starting his own engineering company in the 80s and seeing how successful that was, right? So on both sides, where on many years we were working, trying to eat healthy, struggling with budgets, wearing hand-me-down clothes, taking some donations, to the other end where money wasn't an issue anymore, but the mentality and how to save, how to spend it, how to invest it still retains in me, right? And so as I went through college, I've always been an entrepreneur at heart. My undergrad, I started this company called Zurich Incorporated, an e-commerce company I ran for 4 years that was eventually sold to Microsoft in 2006. And then since then, I've bounced a lot between Fortune 500 companies working on the corporate world, along with entrepreneurial ventures. And this latest one, The Money Ninja, I'm really excited and passionate about It's one of those things that as, the 20s kids kind of grow up in college, a lot of my friends ask me, what do I need to invest in? How do I save better? What should I spend money in? Should I buy? Should I rent? Should I purchase a vehicle? Should I refinance? There are so many questions. And rather than spend an hour or 2 hours with one individual, I'm like, wait a minute, why don't I just put all these things on a website? And when people ask me, it's almost like you post once, you spend a few hours on a post, and everyone can read it, right? Just like, your show, Sharifa, where your interviews are always going to be on record on YouTube, on podcasts, and people can always look back at it and understand, take notes, and learn about it. And so for myself, the demographics isn't really targeted. You can be a mid six-figure income earner and still understand how to protect your money better, how to invest it better than a financial advisor would. If you're just starting out in college or high school and you're struggling with your finances or working a part-time job, it teaches you, one thing that really, I didn't realize coming into it how powerful it was, is that my model of saving money and spending money is the exact same thing, right? And so one example of this is if you have one person make $100 per day, but they spend $50 on food, let's say, and $50 in entertainment, right? Their $100 that they earn, it's all gone. Another person can make the same $100, but because they know how to get discounts, they know how to negotiate. There's, phone, the internet with all these cashback apps and your returns on certain things you purchase. If you just understand that mentality, that $100 that she would have spent like the other person, the first person, she only spent 50, right? And so that means that first person would have had to make $50 more just to be in the same income or spending level than the second person. So my whole mentality is just because you have a job and you might be everyone likes to get paid more, right? But don't think about it as how do I earn more money? It's both how do I earn more money, make money, and how do I save it better? Because they're both one and the same at the end.
Wow. I find it very interesting because I understand that philosophy, but I'm also one of these people who I love to spend. That's just what I do. I just spend, right? But one of the reasons that I spend is, especially now, is to support our local businesses. To me, this is not the time to say, okay, well, can I have a discount on this meal or I need $5 off? Because a lot of the businesses and small businesses especially are struggling. So I look for more ways and more opportunities to be able to support these businesses. So how do you balance wanting to support as well as making sure that you have, enough as far as savings?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think it comes to twofold, right? Like the economy right now is so intertwined, where you're right. During this whole COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of restaurants in particular and small businesses are really struggling. Not only for people, foot traffic, right? Because it's essentially gone for the last year and a half, but also in terms of revenue, how do I support their rent, their lease, and also still make a decent profit on the side? So I think my advice in the site itself doesn't propose that we try to steal, I don't want to say steal, but squeeze every nickel and dime out of the small businesses. It's more of what can we do as individuals, be smart with our finances, but at the same time, support small businesses. And one example of that is restaurants right now. They're struggling, especially during the weekday, to get any type of pickup order or takeout. And so there's a lot of startups and small companies out there who make, for instance, phone apps, where if you book a reservation, you get a certain percentage of cash back on the restaurant, right? It might seem detrimental to the small businesses, but if you realize that Monday, Tuesdays are really slow days for restaurants where they don't get any business at all, these intermediaries are really going to the restaurant and say, hey, if we can bring you 100 more people to this restaurant, you might sacrifice a 10% profit margin, but can you still make money by doing all these food delivery orders? And the answer has been resounding yes, right? A lot of these businesses who have not gone bankrupt or closed down yet, they have partnered with these apps. So it's not just Uber Eats or DoorDash that people are used to, right? There's other apps out there that encourages you to go during the off days, to increase the traffic for the restaurants. At the same time, they provide a small discount to incentivize you to go more than once. So it's a win-win situation versus a zero-sum game.
I love that answer. And I'd love to know about one of those apps because that's news to me.
Yeah. So I don't want to steal all the time, but one of the things that I love is this is a smaller one. It's only available in select US cities right now, but it's called Seated. And what it really does is if you go to the restaurant, whether you dine in, take out, or do delivery, Once you get it delivered or dine out, you take a picture of your receipt through this app on your phone, and it gives you anywhere between 10 to 40% cash back to yourself. And you can either redeem that for money or redeem it for the restaurant gift card or other retail gift cards out there, right? And this seating company partners with these restaurants and only provide these discounts during like the slower traffic areas. So it's not like they're taking away business on Fridays and Saturdays and Sundays where the restaurant's going to get business anyways. It's more of that Monday lull afternoon where you're not going to get anything at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And this company comes in, broadcasts or advertises to all the people who has the app and say, hey, come to these restaurants during this time and save 10 to whatever percentage off it is, right? And so these restaurants, they're paying, yes, a small commission to make them last, but it's from my perspective, right? It's better to make 10% off of something than 0% off of nothing.
That's right. I believe the same thing. I'd rather have a little bit of something than a whole hell of a lot of nothing. John, I am going to come back to you. I want to go ahead and introduce our next guest, Miss Chanel West. She was born and raised on the south side of Chicago. She is the oldest of 4 kids. As a graduate of University of Illinois, Chicago with a BA in political science, Chanel had ambitions to be a lawyer. Somehow she was led to become a teacher and went to obtain her MS in early childhood education and early childhood development. After teaching for 4.5 years, we're going to find out about Chanel's new journey. Good morning, Chanel. How are you?
Hi, Sharifa. Nice to meet you guys. That's a unique thing, real quick. I wanted to make sure I didn't have no background noise. But it's so good to be here at the round table talk. I'm so happy to be here. I used to teach. I used to do everything from early childhood, which is where my master's and my doctorate that is pending is from. I taught everything from preschool to kindergarten, and then I taught elementary in the inner city of the south and west side of Chicago, where I'm from. So I taught everything from 4th to 7th grade. So much to like our other panelists, the teacher, I'm all about teaching empathy because our kids, especially where I'm from, don't really have it, and that's a learned skill. Unfortunately, I got burnt out, and I just got so exhausted, and I wasn't seeing myself being the best teacher I could for our kids. And our kids need the best role models, the best teachers, the best everything. And I have to just respectfully check out. I'm like, I love y'all, but I love me a little bit more. And I had some life changes happen during the year of 2016. I had my first and only child that unfortunately I gave birth at 24 weeks. And 10 days later, he passed away. So I took that year. Thank you. His birthday was actually 2 weeks away. He would have been 5 this year. So I'm in a better space to talk about it, but that right there rocked my entire world. So I took 2016 and 2017 off, and I just started to travel the world. I ended up teaching English as a way to make money, but I started to love it. And I found myself in Asia, and I just really fell in love with the Asian culture of Japan and Thailand and China. That's primarily where I taught. And then COVID hit, so I came back home because I was actually in Beijing last February when everything popped off. I was almost stuck in China because the flights weren't. I had to do a little evacuation to come back. So I ended up going home, went to Mississippi where I had a friend that lived there, and I quarantined with him. And I was going insane. I am an extroverted person, as you all can tell. I love to be around people. I'm a social butterfly. Being at home just made me I couldn't. So as a way to de-stress for me, I started to do what I used to do in high school, and that was make handmade products. And, I used to do like little potions and little magical things when I was in high school, just for fun. I used to make shea butter and stuff for my hair. Now, currently in 2021, there are more options for Black and natural hair care. Before, that was very limited. So you used to go to the beauty supply store and go to the African market and get the shea butter, your cocoa butter, and mix it together. And I started just to pick that up during quarantine. And then I found myself really enjoying it because one of my ways of self-care is to take care of my skin, my body, and do like bath, body, and beauty things, stuff that girls like. And then it just slowly took off from there. And people were like, oh, you should sell this. This is actually a good formula. This goes well with my skin. I think it's super cute. So I'm like, okay. And I asked my partner at the time, I said, hey, I know we're in a global pandemic. I know people lost their jobs. However, I'm thinking about starting a business. I'm thinking about starting my business named Chanelli, which is the nickname my mother gave me as a child. I'm selling these handmade bath and body products. I'm not sure what's going to happen from it, but I don't want to teach anymore. And I really enjoy this. I'm having a lot of fun. What do you think? And this man, kid you not, he said, I think that's the dumbest idea ever. I think that this is not a good idea. And I think you have pipe dreams. Okay. So out of spite, I started the business just to prove him wrong. And a year later next month, actually, my brand was just in the Oscar gift bags last week. And we are now in the International Film Festival. So I'm just going to let everyone know, don't let no one tell you what you can and cannot do. Because if God puts that dream on you, that's your dream, that's your purpose, and you live that out. So now I'm currently an entrepreneur making my own handmade bath, body, and beauty products named Chanelli, named after my nickname my mother gave me. And I know you're like, why is this grown woman wearing this crown and these cat ears? I'm really playful. I'm very energetic. I'm very bubbly. And that is my brand. My brand is about to make you feel fabulous while you use my products, make you feel like you are that queen, like you are that it. You are you while you have Chanelli. And I call my clients kittens because I call myself a kitten, and that's where the cat ears came from. It was no big backstory, but that's just what I do. So that's just me.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love the journey. Because people come on the show all the time and they want to tell me about the business. And I'm like, I don't want to hear about that. I want to hear about the journey. I want to hear about the story. I want to hear about the why that got you to where you are. So I love the story. And it reminds me of part of my journey. When I first started out, when I built my first website in 1994, there were certain people in my family who said I was lazy. Because it had nothing to do with how much money I earned. It was about the fact that I wanted to work at home. In 1994, I already knew that the internet was the only way for me to be able to stay at home, watch my kids take their first steps, hear their first words, spend that time with them, as well as earn a living. But their mindset was, unless you're leaving the house, unless you're going to 9 to 5, then you're lazy and you don't want to work. So sometimes the people in your circle can be the ones who affect you the most. But what stands out to me and so interesting today about this show, and the shows tend to come together, is that the importance of Asians, how we're having this discussion on the passion for Asians and supporting them. Then we have two teachers who said, yeah, I was teaching, but there was something in me that wanted to do something else. There was something in me that wanted to do more. So I just find it very interesting how everything is kind of coming together. John, I would love to hear your thoughts on the conversation thus far. John Andrews, sorry.
I feel like I'm just riffing and just being in it and just feeling everyone. I think whenever you get a group of people together, it's always fascinating to see. So what's the thing, right? Like, what's the thing that is going to guide this? And I just love feeling all the energies. And Chanel, I'm thinking, I got it. Like Mother's Day's coming up. Like, is there time? Is like how fast is shipping kind of thing going on? Like, that's what's going on in my head.
We got to get some Chanellies whenever we get Chanelli here to talk about it. Chanel West talked about her passion, how she left teaching, traveled the world, had a fascination with Asia. What are your thoughts, Sheena?
I love Chanel's story because I went through a similar thing when I used to work a job, especially when it comes to a man telling you you're not good enough to go out there and do it. I remember trying to look for another job because I've done everything that I possibly could at my last job. And I remember a male coworker telling me, like, you make more than enough as a woman. Why are you going to go out there and look for another job? And, back then I didn't have that confidence to say, what are you talking about? Right. Or like, F off. I actually listened to him and I stayed at that job for like another 6 years because that's all I thought I could do. Right. And as women, we go through so many things. Like, we have a huge confidence gap over men, right? Sometimes we over prepare to a T, and something still kind of holds us back, right? And this is why having conversations like this, showcasing amazing women like what Chanel did, she didn't care what the man that she was with at the time, he may have told her it was a dumb idea, but she's like, no, it's not. I'm just going to run with it. And look where she is today. It's being shown at the International Film Festival. And I think this is such an important lesson, like showcasing, what our capabilities are as women, right? Because if we just like put the effort to take action regardless of the outcome, we can do so much things, right? Men, they go out there and they do things that are 20% ready, but they'll go ahead and do it regardless if they fail or not fail, right? Regardless if they get an answer or not, they'll just keep doing it until they reach their end goal. And sometimes we just have to go out there and do it, take action, and not overthink everything, right? Because we tend to overthink a lot. We tend to think we're not good enough. And that's also because of how society sees women, right? One of the things that's like not proper is women self-promoting, right? Like being here and talking about the things that we do, like showcasing our books, showcasing our products and services. It's deemed not ladylike. And it's like, who decided what was ladylike or not? And for me, it's like, we need to learn to promote ourselves because we have a product or service that can really change a person's life. And if we don't talk about it, we're really doing a disservice. And it's not easy. Of course, it's not easy, right? Especially as a woman going up here, talking about the things that you do, talking about what you're passionate about. It can be scary, but in order for us to build confidence is to just really push through our fears. Like, I didn't talk like this the first time I went on a show or went on TV or did a workshop. I was like really, really scared. I would stutter. I had like icy cold hands. I blanked out because it's normal. We're human, right? And I think the more we can talk about the struggles we went through, it just makes people realize like it's all part of the process, right? I think the thing that really I don't like the most is when people say they're an overnight success. It's like, no, they're not. They've been putting in the work day in and day out. A great example is Lizzo. A lot of people think she came out of nowhere, but she actually she tweeted something last year saying, sometimes I would sing for beer because they couldn't pay me money. And she has been doing this for 10 years, like doing underground shows, doing free shows, doing as many shows to put herself out there to get to where she is today. And if people can understand, like, this is all part of the journey, we just know it's part of the process and that Rome wasn't built in a day. So if Rome wasn't built in a day, neither can we, right?
Absolutely. That's a funny expression because my dad and I joke about that all the time. My dad would say to me, he would say, Sharifa, Rome wasn't built in a day. And I'll say, well, how long did it take to build? And my dad always says, it's still being built, so it's not done. It's not finished. Rome is still being built. So I want to go over to, I was going over to Chanel, but I'm going to go, Chanel, are you with me? John Andrew had a question for you. He wanted to know about shipping. Can he get some Chanel's in time for Mother's Day?
Oh, you all are so sweet. Thank you. Having some technical difficulties. I'm not sure. I live in a building where the internet is just trash. But yes, I will give you my website. It is lovechanelli.com. Again, LOVE, Chanelli, CHANELLIE.com. I have a code where if you find us on TikTok, it's 10% off. So use code TikTok for 10% off. And if you spend 50 or more, it's free shipping. So I got you covered, John. I got you all the way.
Type it in right now. I'll put it in.
Thank you. And I'm just so happy that we're talking about Asian culture as well, because much to Sheena's point, I respect Asian culture. I've let people know that I'm an ally. A lot of my students internationally were from Southeast Asia. And I always wanted to, balance the idea of being enamored with Asian culture without fetishizing and without disrespecting them. And I want people to know, like, my brand is a celebration of me loving this part of Asian culture, not just as an adult, but also as a child. I used to watch anime, which is like Japanese cartoons as a child. And I just found it felt so fascinating. And now with this whole 2021 culture, we're definitely trying to be more respectful, and we're trying to be more conscious about what we do and how we do it. If you're not being, like a tourist or like a weeb is what they call people that are just there for like the pretty part of it. But no, I respect Asian culture. I respect the people. I let people know I'm just taking what they gave me and I'm making it my own. But this is from their culture. I respect them. I respect their people, and I'm just doing me how
Do you? Do you? Do you?
I like this because, you know, Sheena and Chanel, like, I think a lot of these things we talk about, they're all these social issues are intertwined, right? I mean, we've seen these recurrent themes over and over again. And I love that, like, you know, how these travel stories kind of get shared and open up, and how it opens your mind just by traveling, getting out there and seeing how other people live. And it creates like a different way of thinking with you, right? If you're holed up in Boston, Toronto, or wherever you may be from, your thinking becomes linear, and then travel opens that up. And, you know, Sheena, what you were saying, right? I agree with you. We have to be vocal, right? I mean, racism is I would say, you know, grew up in the 80s. It's much better than before. But, you know, because it's not seen or heard as much, doesn't mean it's not a big issue, right? And we've seen in the past couple of years where racism within certain individuals have been more, you know, it was maybe contained within their body before, and now it's a lot more out, right? So it's like, oh, we are doing better, but it's nowhere being close to being resolved or finished, right? We're being more diversified, but there's so many other issues to tackle, and we have to speak up, right? Whether you're a woman trying to start your own business and run through headwinds that you know, men may not necessarily have, or you're born with from a minority group in the United States or Canada, and you go through these things that other folks may not have witnessed, right? But I love these things, right? Because travel definitely opens people up. We have to be vocal. We have to be proponents of ourselves to, you know, share out there. Because if we're going to be silent, the only winners are going to be the ones who share hate, right? And then propagate that. So, you know, awesome messages all around. Like, just, I mean, like what Sharifa said earlier, right? We don't know where this conversation's headed, but I love that we're sharing all our entrepreneurial journeys at the same time, open up all these social issues to discuss, and what's important for each and every one of us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. John Andrew. So let me ask you, too often we feel that it's easy for people to make a transition, to go from being a teacher to go to being an entrepreneur. What was that journey like for you?
Yeah, so I started out my teaching career in Rhode Island, and we moved across the country to Southern Oregon. This is in 2007. No, this is early. It's like 2003, and right after college, and I had some jobs lined up in Southern Oregon or in California, and most time we're going across the country. And we got to talking, and we thought, you know, family is the most important thing. Why don't we live by her family in Southern Oregon? So we canceled on my job, you know, job interviews, moved to Southern Oregon, thought we were just going to live on love and scholarship. My parents were so upset with me. They thought, why do we spend all this money on education? You want to be a teacher? Okay, wait. You went across the country and you canceled all your teaching interviews and you're just going to live? Like, what are you going to do? And so we had this thought, we just lived on love, you know, and scholarship, and just figure it out. And I got a job 2 weeks after the school year started in Southern Oregon teaching Latin. The former Latin teacher became the head of the school. We both had the same alma mater, Brown University. He said, and when I started getting life coaching, he said, whatever you're going to do with coaching, you have the green light as long as you're teaching Latin. So I had a laboratory at my fingertips for 4 years. And then the summer times, I would go and, you know, try out my business. So I had like these 10-week little chunks to do, like, you know, entrepreneuring, and then come back to teaching. So I had this really nice sort of soft, you know, platform to go from. We decided to move to Portland, a 5-hour drive north. We had a 1-year-old. I cashed out my $10,000 401k after 6 years of teaching. The banker gave me a lecture about not cashing out my 401k. We did it anyway. We had lawn furniture. We were month to month for 2 years. The pandemic hit in 2008, and I had just quit my job. And so I had no job, 5-hour drive north. We had a 1-year-old with lawn furniture. I mean, it was wildly stressful. But what kept me going, like the two things, the deepest thing I learned from this is that, like, doing it, like having like empathy and having motivation for the sake of other is so powerful. And it acted like this sort of stress valve, because I always would think of this sophomore who, you know, for just wasn't getting it, wasn't the, you know, the ideas of what they were up against and not really being prepared. It just propels me. It got me through. And then we started training people to be coaches around 2009, 2010, and that took off. And, I built my current client base up to over 40 clients. I figured out how to market coaching. And now, I was a writer for Newsweek Education for a year. I've been to India, Switzerland, all over the place, giving talks about coaching. I really feel like the world is shifting. And even with the Black Lives Matter movement that happened over the summer, I feel like in the racial awareness that's happening right now with Asian Americans, the world is shifting. It's no longer this, the internet is unleashing all of this idea, like knowledge and sharing of information that's happening. Moist is Latina, and it's frightening to me sometimes being like the white male. Like I have all the privileges, like a straight white male, like it's all put in one package and I'm me and I just am. But being married to a small brown woman, I realized, whoa, white people have to really gain knowledge. And it's not just a theoretical, that's the thing that frightens me the most is I don't know if I weren't married to her, I would understand the depth or the challenges, or it's not just like big things, it's like the micro stuff and
microaggressions.
It's intense, sprinkled with a couple big things. You're like, all right, what are we really doing here as our people? Are we going to do it? Are we really going to have this reckoning and this heart to heart? We need to have it. And I feel like that's my story, Sharifa.
No, I love it. I love it
journey,
because I love just the opportunity to have this show, because people come on all the time and they say, well, I didn't intend to say that, or I didn't, but it's just these moments of authenticity that just come through that I think is amazing. Now, I definitely want to ask Sheena her thoughts on what you just had to say, but I want to go back to John Pham for a minute. And before we get into the passion of what John Andrew said, I want to go back to your thoughts on, because I hear John Andrew talking about his journey. He, gave up everything for love, got a lecture from the banker about cashing in his 401k. It's like we always try to prevent people by saying, be safe, be smart, do the smart thing, do the safe thing. But then everyone loves a hero. We love to applaud them. Yes, you did it. You made it. You've arrived. But on this journey, it's be safe. So I love to hear your thoughts, John Pham, about the initial journey that John spoke about.
Yeah, so it's tough, right? Because you're right. In the normal, typical standard financial circles, it is going through life in aggregated steps, right? Get a job after college or high school. Make sure you're saving the appropriate amount in your 401k or retirement. Save X percentage of your money every week and have an emergency fund and make sure you're not overspending. But there are going to be situations where, outsized gains or outsized opportunity, even self-development, wherever it may be, doesn't have to be monetary. It involves risk, right? And so a lot of the times you can't just go through the standard advice because a lot of those times, if you do, you risk losing those opportunities that come for you, right? And they may be one in the blue moon, it may be like a commandeering occurrence, but listen, right? In financial advice, there's a lot of people who, they always talk about the same thing in the financial circles, right? Nobody likes doing budgets, yet a lot of financial people says we got to do 30% here and 30% here and 40% here, but no one wants to stop drinking coffee, right? I drink Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts almost every single day, right? And a lot of people says, well, if you save $1 here, guess how much you have at the end of the year, right? And so for me, it's like we understand human behavior. Like no one likes doing budgets that much. Let's be honest with that, right? No one likes to stop doing what they enjoy. No one likes to not go on vacation or take a chance. So John, to your point there is, although it's a little bit different than the typical standard financial advice I give, is that, sometimes when use a baseball analogy, when you're a batter, you just got to either one, play it safe and get a single or double, or sometimes you got to go for it, hit the home run, right? And if you don't have the capital or the money at the time, is taking money out of your retirement, 401k, whatever, to do something you love bad? No, I think it's more of you yourself, listen to yourself, like what do you want to do in the next couple of years of your life, right? And make those action plans as long as you have a clear goal. And the fail safe is that is, you do open yourself up to risk, but what are those risks? What are those factors? And kind of plan it out there. Because, for me, giving advice to each individual is so specialized that for me to say, yeah, John, that makes sense. You kind of like said everything in this podcast in a clear way. So for you, I'm like, absolutely. You're doing what you love. You have like a path to go to, and you're doing the right thing. As someone who, let's say they're a little more wishy-washy, saying, I have this job and I'm thinking about doing this and I don't know, maybe I'll test it out. A lot of those words doesn't instill self-confidence. It's more of, I'm looking for another option, but I'm not too sure. But if you're going to go in 50% of the way, I wouldn't recommend that, right? But if you're passionate about what you do and you want to take a swing at the bat, and yeah, you may strike out, but it's one of those things that you understand the risks and you're going to go for it anyways. And the thing I always tell my wife before is, Bill Gates, Elon Musk, they're smart individuals, right? But in a different time, and had they not taken that chance in high school or college, or even Michael Dell, right? And when he was studying at University of Austin, had they not done these things in the wrong time of their life, they wouldn't be who they are today. And not to say that if you do take that risk, it's always going to be successful, right? Because there are people who are just as smart as them, it's just the wrong timing. They started too late, or they were too conservative, didn't want to bite the bullet. And 5-10 years from now, they said, what if I did this? What if I did that? Right? So Sharifa, I know it's not a clear answer, but for me is you have to listen to yourself. If you're 100% behind your thought process, I don't think there's a wrong answer in taking a chance. However, if you're just playing around with the idea and not too sure, that doesn't instill confidence enough at saying like, hey, I want to kind of test and learn about this, but to risk your 401k for that might be a little bit too end of the spectrum of saying, well, let's stop a little bit. But in John's point, love the journey. Chanel, I love her journey. And also, that Asian woman who bossed up with Sheena. I mean, all these stories, they tell me, like you said, Sharif, right? You're not interested about pitching the business so much as the journey we got there. And all these other three individuals we are today in this roundtable have a succinct story, a unique proposition, how they kind of grew up or where they came to be where they're today, right? Whether they were teaching in some school or went on a trip to Asia and opened their mind, or Sheena going through some adversity with working in the corporate world, right? And people saying, oh, you got paid enough, like why are you unhappy for? These personal journeys are to make us who we are today. So I don't want to say it's a negative for us. I think it's a negative for the world, but a positive experience that we're able to take these negatives and turn it around and say, you know what, that's not right. I'm going to champion something to do better.
Yes, absolutely. But it goes back to what you said. There is no right or wrong answer on the Roundtable Talk Show. I just want to hear your thoughts and your opinion for the conversation. So it's not a pop quiz. It's just your thoughts. So John Andrew, what are your thoughts on what John Pham had to say?
Well, I mean, looking at it from like every objective standpoint, it was probably, I mean, from like, outside third person, you're looking at this going like this, what it's the middle of a financial, it's 2008. It's the middle of a financial crisis before the springtime before. So the spring, March 2008, the school offered me the full-time position to be the school's life coach. Mm-hmm. And I was writing up this proposal to the school board. I felt this sinking feeling in my stomach thinking, if I do this, I would be the school's basically firefighter. There's a problem with the student. Oh, bring in John, take care of it. Life coaching, academic life coaching is this magic wand that can, solve all the problems. And I thought, no, not doing it. So we moved 5 hours, 5-hour drive north. And then, I mean, it just wasn't like you have a choice. It's like we needed the money, we needed the 10,000. So it's, and it's the kind of thing where we didn't really have a plan B, but it wasn't like I sat down and looked at the numbers. It was, what we're up to here is more important than the money. And if we make this a movement, like if we really, really try to change education, the money will take care of itself. And that was our perspective. It's just make it more important than the money. And then the money becomes a tool.
That's right. If you do what you love, the money will follow. Sheena, I love your thoughts on what John Andrew had to say a little earlier.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing we're really, especially as women, not good at is tuning into our intuition, right? There's like this butterfly in our stomach, or there's signs that keep popping up to us, and we still feel like we don't take that sign, right? Because we're afraid to make mistakes. And in life, we're going to make mistakes, right? It's a part of life. And, for me, mistakes aren't anything bad. It's just a lesson, right? It's something to course correct. It's feedback. It's not the end of the world. And if we can just see things that way, it would make our lives a lot better, right? I mean, when I was in the Philippines, the teacher failed me kindergarten for coloring outside the lines. And so for the longest time, I thought I was just an epic failure. But if somebody just told me that failure isn't final, it's just failure is feedback, I mean, I would see things a lot differently. And I think with John's case, he just went with his gut feeling, right? I mean, if you have a calling and there's signs out there that's telling you, do this, do this, do this, even if it doesn't look what you pictured in your head, even if it's the total opposite, you'll look back and be like, I finally get why everything happened the way it happened. And so, of course, it's not always easy to go with our gut feeling, right? Because it's scary, especially when you're in a culture where everything's laid out for you. Everyone wants stability. Everyone wants to make sure you're safe. And safe isn't always a good thing, right? Because that's when you stop taking action. You start getting uncomfortable. You want to be just, that safe and laid out life that you have. And a part of us doesn't like that, right? A part of us feel like we're trapped. Right. But being able to go out there and just being able to embrace the unknown can also be a great thing, because we don't know what the world or the universe has in store for us. And as everyone mentioned, if you have a calling that's bigger than you, everything else will fall into place, even if we don't see it at first, even if we're like, are you sure this is what I'm supposed to do? Because we all go through that, right? We're all human. Like, we all have our doubts. We all feel like, is our calling really our calling? We all go through it. And so I think just being able to practice using our intuition will help us along the way.
I love it. And I think that's going to be your next book, Sheena. Failure isn't final. Failure is by Sheena Chan. I love it. I love it.
Thank you.
Get that out there, Sheena. Now, we are coming down to the last few minutes of the show. And what I love to do at the end of every show is just simply allow my guests the opportunity to speak directly to the audience, to everyone who is watching this show live, as well as everyone who is watching it in the archives, and let them know what you want them to take away from your appearance here today. And we're going to start with you, Chanelli.
Oh, thank you. I just want people to know, just based off what Sheena was saying, that just go after what you know. Like, what's going to happen for you is going to happen for you. Your story is your story. Your journey is your journey. There's no right or wrong way to do anything. And much of what everyone is saying as far as feeling safe, that's our body's natural fight or flight reaction. And that's where those degrees come in. I know why my brain is telling me why certain things I do is to keep me safe. But if it's for you, if something doesn't feel right, don't be afraid just to keep going and push forward if that's what you need to do. If it's meant for you, it's meant for you. No one can take away what's for you. No one can take away what is meant for you. And if you fail, that's okay. Try again, try something differently. Whatever is going to happen. And no matter what you do, you're going to find yourself being unique. Just don't fight it.
Absolutely. And what's for you are Chanelli's. What's the website? For the Chanelli.
Yes, definitely get your self-care together. You get everything you need. Everything's natural, clean, eco-friendly, and responsibly sourced at www.lovechanelli.com. You get to feel fun, frilly, and fabulous. I got you taken care of. Don't you worry. Don't you worry.
That's right. That's right. But you got to make sure you stay on top of your finances. Got to be a ninja. John, what do you have for us?
I had a closing, but because of the way this conversation organically developed, I will say this, and just follow up the conversation before, right? Is that people always, it's so cliche, but you got to follow your passion, right? And take the risk. Right before my graduate studies, I left a well-paying 6-figure salary to start another startup, right? It didn't end up that well and lost a significant amount of money in that, but my thought process, which is lying out, right, is I was young, we're relatively young anyways. So I was relatively young and I had lost it all. Could I build it back up, right? And I always think about my mom and dad who came here with nothing. And so we as Americans or Canadians, Sheena, we live in a pretty prosperous countries. And so going to Vietnam, so I'm an avid traveler too. And I've traveled, I think 140 countries. And so I've been privileged to see that we live a very good life. And regardless of what we complain about, not having enough or not making enough money, when you look at in terms of the totality of the world, we make so much more than the average world citizen. And so if that's going to stop you back from pursuing your passion or chasing your dreams and maybe fail, like Sheena said, but at least you fail fast, right? And that's only the first step in the whole life development process, is just do it now, because today is a better opportunity than tomorrow, right? And then if you always push it back, you're never going to get to that level where you said, okay, you know what? I'm too comfortable with my corporate job, or I have too many expenses, right? But it's one of those things. Follow your passion. As far as the website goes, moneyninja.com. If you want to learn more on how to save money, save it better, spend it wisely and invest it. Let me know in like we post about 2-3 posts every single week. It goes in a variety of different topics, right? So it's not someone who's only making 20, 30,000, but if you're making $500,000, I think the income ranges, demographic and segment, there's something there for everyone. And the part I love about it is not just like the blog itself, but all these comments and emails and contacts I receive say, hey, can you talk about this? Or how do you talk about refinancing your mortgage? And I just love feedback. So if you check the site out through this roundtable that Sharifa has done for us, let me know in the comments or send me an email. Be very happy to talk to anyone.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Sheena, what do you have for us?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just piggybacking on everyone's message, I think one of the things I would tell people is don't be afraid to make the first move because you never know what's going to happen. And I know it's scary. Like this is coming from an Asian girl who's been told to do as you're told. But honestly, half the things wouldn't have happened if I just went out there and made the first move. And especially as women, if we want to be in leadership, we got to take that action, right? We want more women leaders up there so we can make this world a better place. Sorry, dudes, but I say women do a better job. So. But for anyone who'd like to pre-order a signed copy of Asian Women Who Boss Up, feel free to check out SheenaYapChan.com. I also have a free report called 8 Ways to Boss Up Your Confidence in Businesses and Life. Also, I have a complimentary 20-minute coaching session that anyone can that anyone can sign up for. And also tomorrow, be on the lookout for International Women of Color Who Boss Up on Amazon. It launches tomorrow. So please, may the 4th be with us. And if you forgot anything I said, just look up Sheena Yap Chan. I'm the only Sheena Yap Chan on the internet.
Thank you. Thank you. John Andrew, what do you have for us?
I'm just really loving all the energy. One, two, now throughout the years, I would see that, it's that banker and think, look at me now, what's up? And now I have payroll. I got over 50,000 a month payroll. Are you kidding me? I am spending more on payroll every single month than I did make a year teaching. What's up now? It's almost like you get this idea of this is what I want to create in the world, and you go for it. I mean, it's hard. And that's it's that mental emotional work that, is it easy? No, but is it worth it? Yes. And this idea of how to find me, coachtrainingedu.com is our coach training organization. I would love to be on podcasts and play and get in the sandbox and, get messy and see where everything is, because this matters. These conversations matter. And it's the kind of thing that we need to share, and more empathy and awareness and knowledge. Everyone benefits, and we're all on the same team.
Absolutely. Wonderful words to close the show. I want to thank you all for being guests on today's episode of the Roundtable Talk Show. And I especially want to thank everyone who tuned in to watch the show live, as well as everyone who is watching it in the archives. Just because you didn't catch the show live doesn't mean you're not important. And it doesn't mean we still don't need your support, because we do. Whether you're watching the show 5 days from now, 18 days from now, 2 years from now, it doesn't matter. Please go ahead and share the show. The guests came here this morning to support you, to provide you with their stories, their advice, their guidance. So please support them. Visit their websites. Their website link is in the Facebook post. But as always, please don't just visit the website. Please don't just share the show. Support our guests. Follow them on social media. Reach out to them. Send them a message. And when you do, please let them know Sharifa Hardy says hi. Now, if you're interested in more ways that I can help your business, or maybe you want to be a guest on the Roundtable Talk Show, please visit my website at asksharifa.com. Until tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Pacific, everyone have a safe and a blessed day. Bye now.